Hello and welcome to a very special episode of the Racing News 365.com podcast. The reason why it's so special, well, joining myself, Nick Golding, and lead editor Ian Parks is none other than former Haas F1 team principal, star of Netflix series Drive to Survive, author of international bestseller Surviving to Drive, and his new book Unfiltered, which follows a story of how he formed the Haas F1 team and ran them, will come out in October. It is, of course, none other than F1 rock star, I think is the best way of putting it, Guenther Steiner. Guenther, firstly, how are you? Thank you so much for coming on. What have you been up to? Because it sounds like with the books, you've been pretty busy.
Yeah, first of all, hello to everyone, and thanks for having me. I have been pretty busy. You know, I never thought I would be this busy. I'm busy for an unemployed guy. You know, so it's like I'm doing. I've been about to half of the races up to now. I'm going to do the same in the second half of the season for TVs, for different TVs. I'm doing a book tour end of the year, October, November in the UK. It's a lot of things going on, you know, and I'm actually enjoying myself in the moment. So it's all good with me. Thank you.
Amazing. I want to ask about the new book Unfiltered, because obviously it's about the story of how you formed the Haas F1 team and then ran them. Given how much of the past decade you've spent to that team and that company, what's it been like for you recollecting all those memories?
No, it's actually a cool thing, and we decided, me and the publisher, to do it now until the memories are fresh, you know, because longer you wait, more you forget. Because and then I realized how quick the 10 years went by. It's unbelievable, you know, because that was 10 years ago. It seemed to be a few years ago, because time was just flying, you know. But it was pretty cool to collect them and put them down, you know, or also in a jokingly way as well. Sometimes, you know, like the first book, there is not all this series. It's not you know, it's just explaining how some things happen in life, you know, because we always try to make everything sound so complex and things, and some things are actually, they are complex, but they are still nice to do, you know. We don't need to make a meal out of everything. Some things just happen, you know, and then you explain how it happens. And, well, that is a strange way it happened. Yeah, but that's the way, you know.
You mentioned there how fast time seems to be flying. And this season in particular, it's the record-breaking 24 rounds, yet the first 14 have come and gone in a flash. It's a summer break. It seems ridiculous that we're already here. So much has happened this season already. It looked like at the start that Red Bull were going to crush everyone like 2023, but we've had 7 different winners across 4 different teams. For you, so much has happened in F1 this year. What have been some of your biggest takeaways in general from the first half of the season?
How unpredictable Formula One is in the moment. I mean, you said it. It's like beginning of the season, I would say, it's again a domination of Max, and you know, and as we all know, all good things come to an end, you know, and I think that the end came, you know, because sometimes you just need to be patient, and things happen, you know, but and not getting negative. Obviously, it was getting for some people frustrating. Or if you've got another season like this, I'm not watching it anymore, and all of a sudden, you know, we have got 7 different winners in the first half. I mean, who would have put money on that, on race 3 or 4 this year? I wouldn't. I'm honest about it, you know. But it's a good thing. And the amazing thing for me is we still don't know who is actually the best in the moment, and which is a good thing, you know, for going into the second half of the season. Makes it even more interesting. And there's a lot of moving parts as well happening. So as much as the first half was interesting, I think the second half will be as interesting, if not more.
And the
Gunther,
world
good
of
to see you. Good to see you, old friend. I just wanted to chip in there. Thanks for coming on, first of all. Much appreciated. I know you're not a betting man per se, but if you were going to put some money down now, if I gave you $100, because I appreciate you're in New York City, so let's just put that out there as well. Where would you put that $100 right now? On maybe not the driver, because Max has probably got still just a little bit too much of an advantage. But which team would you put that money on right now for the constructors?
I would put it on McLaren. I think McLaren could be almost there as well. They had a few mistakes the last races, small mistakes, you know, nothing big, but that would make them lose a little bit of points. So I think they are the most consistent, and also the car which adapts itself to all the different track layouts. Because in the moment you've got some cars which are better on some track layouts, like Mercedes is very good on the fast stuff. Ferrari was very good, for example, Monte Carlo on the slow stuff. But Budapest, I expected a little bit more from Ferrari and didn't come. So I think the overall, it is a McLaren. And as we saw with Red Bull, in the moment, they've got 1.5 cars trying to get points, not 2 full-time cars, because otherwise they should be further ahead than they are. And they've got just good old Max fighting almost on his own, and they are not as strong anymore as they were at the beginning of the season. So I think McLaren has got a good shot at it. And while you say about the drivers, Max has got a good advantage, but still, there's still half the season to come. So that's not a given to me. I'm with you. I think Max will win the Drivers' Championship, but it could be getting to the last race, that one.
I hope so, because that would be exciting for all of us. On the topic, actually, of Max, we, as you mentioned, all kind of thought of the first few rounds he was going to run away with it again, but we've seen some teams catch up to Red Bull and be able to challenge them. Max does still lead by 78 points, which sounds like a huge margin, but he's shown in recent races that perhaps maybe he's starting to feel the pressure a little bit, going back to Hungary, and of course the radio outburst. And just on that topic, actually, because it's really interesting that it seems like potentially he might have received a little bit of a slap on the wrist, because he seemed very calm and jokey over the radio in Belgium. How would you have dealt with Max's radio outburst in Hungary, given that the broadcasters love him? He was all over the world feed. What would you have done in that situation?
I would say I would have tried to calm him down, because, as you rightly said, he feels now the pressure, and you always need to think that going aggressive against him would have instigated more of him, would have upset him even more. He now needs to know that he has to live the rest of the season not having the dominant car anymore. He needs to deal with that. And this was an outburst, and I'm sure Christian and Helmut Marko talked with him after the race that what he did wasn't right. And Max is a pretty smart guy. And I think the emotions have got the better of him, because when you're used to win, not all the time, but quite dominantly, all of a sudden you're under pressure, and you need to do something different, and you just hit out at everything what can, because you cannot almost... Can you imagine how you feel? You're on this wave, everything is going well, and then it all, I wouldn't say it stops, but you're not there anymore comfortable. You need to fight for every little bit, and any little mistake makes it more difficult, and he just let go. And then I think he came to the conclusion after the race, I need to behave different, because you always need a team. The driver is very important, but he's just part of a big team. If the team is not behind you, a driver cannot do anything. I mean, he's lost as much as being on his own, and that's not good. So I think he reflected. He talked with Christian and Helmut, and they explained that to him, and he came back in Spa, complete changed guy. Let's hope it stays like this. Or I don't know, for entertainment, it's better it goes back to the thing before, but we don't have to think about us. We have to think about the sport, And if he stays calm, he can still win the championship. But if he does actions like he did against Lewis in Budapest, he could lose it,
And the thing that's interesting with Red Bull, and Ian, yourself and I look a bit silly now, because in the recent podcast, we said that we don't think Sergio will return for the second half of the season. That podcast went live, and then 2 hours later, Red Bull confirmed he'll be finishing the season. But it does feel, it does feel that Max is having to overperform, because Checo is having this shocking run of form. Are you surprised, Guenther, that Red Bull are going to stick with Checo for the rest of the season?
I'm with you guys. Don't feel you did it wrong. I said it on TV, on German TV on Sunday. I don't think we see Checo back after the summer break. I mean, so I didn't do a podcast a few hours before, but I said it on live TV. So I don't look any better. But I think 90% of the people which are in Formula One said that, if not more than 90%, because his performance is just not there. And all the messages we got from Christian and Helmut on the weekend was like, we need to make some changes, and therefore I picked them up. I didn't make it up, because I cannot judge if Checo should stay there or not, because I have no vote in that decision. But what the message was, there will be some changes. And I was as surprised as you guys that when I read it, I was like, whoa. I mean, and nothing against Checo, but he just didn't perform. I think he's he's a good guy. I mean, I tried to get him a few times or 2 times for Haas. Because he's a good driver, but he's obviously in this situation now where he cannot overcome, a little bit like Danny Ricciardo at McLaren. He just cannot get out of the hole. You have a little bit of like in qualifying, he did very well in Spa, Checo, and then in the race he goes backwards again from P2 to, but he finished P8, I think he finished in the end. It's like and Max started from P11 and move forward. So it's very weird. So I didn't expect him to be here until the end of the year. But I mean, I'm sure they know what they're doing.
Nick, I now feel so much better knowing that I'm in.
I don't know about that. If you feel better, it's just like
It's made me feel better
now. It's not, I feel better as well, but I was like, wow. I mean, I get all the messages that he's not around, and then this comes. But anyway, it's life, we cannot get it all right, So,
what did you see in Checo, Guenther, at the times that you were trying to sign him?
I mean, he was a good driver at the time. At the time, he was, it was a time when I think he was in the team with Nico Hülkenberg, and they were at a par. And his behavior in the team was very good. He got on with people, which is also important. And he was just a solid driver. Maybe he was not a race winner or a championship winner driver, but at Haas you couldn't go to Lewis Hamilton to ask to come to join. But Checo was one in the midfield when we were doing well, which was a potential candidate. That's what I saw in him.
Guenther, from your experience, have you ever seen anything like that before with drivers where, as I said, they're doing a good role, and in fairness, Checo was doing a really good supportive role at the start of this season. He was on the podium a few times over those first 5 races, wearing backs won 4 of the first 5. And then all of a sudden, pretty much as we saw last season as well, almost at the same point, that his form just completely dipped. Does it happen with drivers? I mean, or does something go wrong with the car? Does the driver lose the feel with the car? Give us an insight as to your experiences when a driver just all of a sudden loses confidence and form.
I mean, there can be so many things, but normally in these days, the cars, nothing changed on the car. The cars are the same. If there is an upgrade, which one driver gets, it's clearly communicated. You cannot hold it away from them. It's not the old days. It's very transparent in every team, I would say, because they're all now well established, these teams, and they're doing all a good job. So there is nothing there. It's just like the driver. It's mental. I think they get under stress, and then if you think how little it takes to be 3 or 4 tenths off, it's understandable. If you don't have the confidence, if you just always feel under pressure, everybody looking at you, everybody just trying to critique you. I mean, I always think on a Monday, when you had a bad weekend, or when you got beaten again from your teammate, to read all the stuff about it and to hear all the stuff about it, like we are talking here, it must get to you if you're not mega strong. But that makes the difference between the real good drivers and the good drivers. The real good, the world champions, they just don't feel it. And it's one of these things. I mean, as I said before, that Danny Ricciardo was a race winner. He went to McLaren and struggled like hell. The car was the same. He goes away, and I sometimes think it's better to step back and go in a smaller team again and start up again than try to beat this. Because I mean, to beat Max Verstappen, there was quite a few people which couldn't achieve that in the same team. Which struggled with that one, because he's mentally so strong and he's such a good driver, and everything works for him. So it is very difficult. And for me, I maybe thought they put Checo in the Visa Cash App car, but for half of the season, and swap them around, Danny and him, and then they see who is actually performing and who not, and then they can take a decision for next year. But they didn't do that. I mean, it's also understandable, but it's one of these things. I don't think he can get out of this hole. But we were proven wrong while we were thinking he's not around anymore after summer break, and he still is, So maybe, and I wish him all the best. I don't wish him bad, because, as I said, I respect him as a driver.
You mentioned there, Guenther, McLaren. Really, if McLaren hadn't done what they have done in this incredible development, then perhaps Checo wouldn't be under the pressure that he is. But How impressed have you been by what McLaren have done, how they've got a car now that seems to perform everywhere, and just how difficult is that for a team to do such a U-turn given where they were at the start of the 2023 season at the back?
Absolutely. And I'm not saying how good they are now. I go back, as you rightly said, in 23, when they came out, they were nowhere. Nowhere. 4, 5, 6 races later, they catch up and getting good. They're in the top 3, top 4. Then they come back the year later in 24 and make the next step. I think they've got actually a good understanding what it is needed to make this latest regulation car working well. The bouncing and all that stuff. Because it's so difficult to understand. But when you understand it, you can work at it and get the development right. Because a lot of people, as we saw this year, they brought upgrades to the cars, which made the car actually go slower. Even if in the wind tunnel it showed more downforce, which what you go for. But certain things you cannot simulate in the wind tunnel what this regulation do on the racetrack. So I think McLaren just had a very good understanding of what is needed, and when they develop for the needs of it, and not and they're not just looking at more downforce, which then you cannot use because the car is not drivable anymore.
And what do you think of their drivers? Because they've got two quite different style. You've got Lando Norris, who we've seen is really self-critical whenever he makes a mistake, quite openly to the media. And then there's Oscar Piastri, who just comes across as cool, calm, and collected. Do you think they've got a good balance there, or is Lando's self-critical nature actually impacting his and the team's results?
First of all, I think what they did with the drivers was very smart. I mean, they picked up drivers very young in the first time in Formula One and hit them both, because normally when you pick up a rookie that he goes wrong, the chances are high because you don't know how they will perform in F1. But they got them both right and very good. And as you say, as a characters, they are completely different. But if you look at them, and I think Lando shouldn't be as self-critical as he is, because I don't think in the end it helps him. It is like you have to be critical, but you don't have to apologize and always, we all make mistakes. Just move on and keep on going, And with Oscar, I'm not surprised that he's who he is. He's very, I would say, introvert almost. He doesn't say a lot. He's very calm always. I think he's a very good guy. But also, if you look about who he's surrounded by, Mark Webber. I mean, Mark Webber went through the same stuff when he was a young guy coming from Australia, coming to Europe, fighting all this battle. Worked with with Flavio. Learned a lot from him, on the way, and now gives all his experience to Oscar and takes all the BS away from him, in my opinion. He just, you focus on racing. I sort the rest out. I don't need any limelight because I had it. Mark was a race winner. So I think how they are set up, it's very good. And I always say this, your surroundings are very important if you do that job. That everybody around you believes in you and is not there for them, but for you, meaning the driver. So, hopefully Lando gets there to get a little bit more, okay, I made a mistake. Next time I'm not going to do it anymore. But it's no need to apologize all the time, because the only one you damage is yourself. Obviously, the team gets a damage as well. But and he will come out of it because he's very talented.
Guenther, did you ever have much interaction with your compatriot, Andrea Stella? Because, and I asked that on the basis that Zach Brown has made it abundantly clear in many conversations that we as media have had with him over this past year and a half or so since this major turnaround, that Andrea Stella, for him, has been the pivotal factor as to why there has been this major change in McLaren's fortunes. So I just wondered, as an Italian, whether, as I say, you had conversations with Andrea as to what kind of person you made, what you made of him as a person.
Yeah, no, I don't know him this well. I know him a long time, but I just spoke maybe the 15 minutes with him in Spa when we landed, because we were together in the airport waiting for a car. So I had quite a long talk with him. As you say, he's very focused on the performance of the car. That's the only thing he focuses on. And he's genuine. He's very calm always. And we never have to forget how much experience Andrea has got in this business. people forget that he's in Formula One a long, long time, and he was not. He had difficult time. He was very good at Ferrari. Had difficult times there. Went to the UK, and just kept on working hard on what he's doing. And if you see him now, he's not getting involved. And also there, we have to compliment Zach. He keeps all the BS away from Andrea, like all the sponsors, all the appearances, all that stuff. Andrea is doing very, very little because he wants to focus on getting the results. And he's very happy with that one. He doesn't want any limelight or nothing. He's one of these guys which just goes about his work very professional and a very, very calm a human being as well.
And I just want to go back actually to a comment you made a couple of minutes ago, and some teams who have introduced upgrades which have made them worse. Mercedes had that for the first 2 seasons really of these regulations, but have suddenly really gotten on top of the W15. We've seen Lewis now win 2 of the last 4 races. How impressed have you been by Mercedes, and do you think the Silver Arrows are now back?
I think they did a good job because they were struggling the last 2 years, and you could really see it. But for me, I don't think they've got the stability or the understanding of the car like McLaren. That's my feeling. They get in these positions to win races, and what they are good at, if the opportunity is there, they take it. Except, obviously, we don't talk about George Russell being underweight, So, because I would have to contradict myself there. I'm contradicting myself there. But normally, if they get a position that somebody is making a mistake, something, they are picking it up. But I don't think they are solid. They don't have a solid understanding of what is needed with these cars like McLaren has got. But they are good and they are back. But already, if you ask me, how will Monza be? I think Monza will be good for Mercedes because it's high speed and they are good normally on high speed. But how good will they be in Zandvoort? I don't really know. It's always no, but we all know McLaren will be good in both of these racetracks.
And just on the topic of George's disqualification, obviously the car being 1.5 kilos underweight, in a team during a race weekend, how much time is spent on the weight calculations and trying to predict how much the car will weigh after the race? Because it's quite rare to see Russell being disqualified for what it was in the end.
Very rare. The calculations for the weight, they are made before the race. And during the race, I do not think that they were thinking about it. I do not think, because otherwise they would have taken some action. I'm pretty sure about that one. Because, if you're underweight, you get disqualified. So even if you say, let Lewis go and pick up marbles or something, I would understand that. But at that point, nobody was actually focusing on it because it was like, can we get to the end with the one stop? There was so much going on. And I personally think there was nobody saying, hey guys, we need to watch the weight now. Because they would have done it. Because you get disqualified. There is not like, yes, if somebody knew or would have focused on it, they would have discovered it and they would say, we need to do something about this. So I honestly think that was because everybody thought it will be a two-stop anyway. It just went by.
Yeah, it's really interesting, actually. And obviously, the big winner, in a way, was Lewis, inherited the win. 2 wins in the last 4, as I mentioned. Do you think there's a part of him which is maybe starting to regret the move to Ferrari, not necessarily for 2026, but for 2025, given that one of those teams who are struggling, having introduced upgrades, is Ferrari, and it's not looking brilliant then for 2025? It is his best chance potentially for an 8th title, actually, to have stayed with Mercedes for next season?
I think Lewis is confident enough. He made the decision. He knows he cannot change it. Focus on what is coming and not regretting. You cannot change it anyway. You need to focus. How can we get what we have got now, Mercedes to Ferrari, that I win there? Can you imagine if he starts to win with Ferrari like he does now with Mercedes? What a hero he will be in the world. I mean, he's already a legend without that. But if he takes Ferrari to a world championship, and I think that is his dream and his reason to go there, he will be remembered forever. So obviously he will be thinking, what if? But what if? I mean, he's not lacking confidence after 7 times being world champion. I think he's in a good space.
That would definitely cement his status as and the GOAT of the sport, wouldn't it? In many people's eyes. I'm not saying I'm not saying that, but just to clarify, But absolutely, I think a lot of people would look at him. If he won a title at Ferrari, he would become just the absolute GOAT for many people. So I'm sure it's something that he's wanted to do. It's always a little box that he's wanted to tick. Speaking to Andrew Shovlin over the weekend in Belgium, the trackside engineering director, Andrew turned around and said that, for him, Lewis going was, as I say, something a box that he wanted to tick. And there's no regrets for anything from all the conversations that he's had with Lewis so far, and even in particular, with Mercedes coming back and winning this Grand Prix, he doesn't sense any regret within Lewis that he's now leaving Mercedes and going to Ferrari. So I'm sure he's going to be going in a good position. At least he's going to be going there as a race winner again, whereas this season, the way it was looking at the start, he could easily have petered out and just, thanks very much, guys. Thanks for all the memories. But now at least he's got something to build on going into Ferrari. As I say, the fact that he's got these race wins under his belt, there could be more over the final 10 races. And of course, that one at Silverstone, that will long be remembered, given the emotion that just came out of him at that particular time, of course.
And of course, with Mercedes seemingly now finally being on the right development path, it leaves a very nice seat open for next season. Of course, the driver who has been massively linked to it is obviously a fellow Italian, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, this teenage sensation who actually, for a young driver, seems to be really, really mature. Obviously, came out with comments recently where he kind of said to Mercedes, hold on, give me some more time. How impressed have you been by him? And for a young driver, just how mature is he?
I don't know him personally, but what you see, the reaction, there was a lot of, when he was speculated to be in the Mercedes, for sure that could have gone completely different way. Him getting too ambitious, but he kept his feet on the ground. But we never have to forget he comes from a racing family. He is mentored by Toto and Mercedes, I say, because Mercedes not only Toto, but Toto since I don't know how many years. That when you are young and being educated in how to behave, how to think, how things are going in an F1 team, and you are so close by one, if not the best team principal in the paddock, it gives you confidence and you learn and you understand. So therefore you can make these grown-up comments. They don't come, he didn't know this when he was born. He learned this over the last 10 years because he was groomed a long time for Mercedes. So we should be expecting something like this from him, but it's still nice to see that actually a guy, 17 years, he is talked by everybody up to be the Mercedes driver. He says to the team, just take calm a moment, because I don't know if I'm ready, So at the beginning of the F2 season this year for him was not too good. I mean, we had to see that one as well. But the last races, he picked the pace up. And I'm not an expert in F2, but I was told that Prema, which was always one of the leading teams in the last 10 years in Formula 2. This year with the new car, they struggled a little bit in the beginning. That was one of the reasons I was told. But now I think they got a grip of the car as normally Prema gets because they're very good how they're structured. So he's doing very well, and let's see what he can do in F1 because I'm with you there, and I hope we don't get it wrong again, like we did the Perez thing, all three together, that he will be announced pretty soon that he's in the Mercedes next year. That I think it goes down to it now, that he will be driving a Mercedes. I think for Mercedes is good. They've got 25, they know what the car is doing, so they can evaluate the driver against George as well. So they've got a good reference with a good car. And then they can see what they do in 26 when the new regulation comes, when we get a complete new set of cards played. So, but I think he will be in the car next year.
You had your ups and downs in hiring rookies. Just how difficult is it, particularly in this day and age as well, with so limited testing, that to take on a rookie, regardless of how well he might have done and might be doing in the junior series? What are you looking at? What are you evaluating?
It's very difficult, and how I took on rookies, it is different than Ferrari or Mercedes or Alpine is doing it, because they work with the rookies for a long period of time, so they know the personalities of the people. When I took them on, I took two guys which I got to know maybe 3 months before we took them on, So it's difficult. It's not only about the driving skills; it's also about the personality, to learn how they tick, as I call it, But the Mercedes has got the advantage. They know exactly how Kimi Antonelli is, because they work with him so long and spend so much time with him. They know what they already thought him when he gets into their front team, because for sure he has been days on the simulator, if not weeks and months on the simulator. So they've got a good understanding, while in my position it was a complete difference. So I think these big teams have got a good understanding of their rookies. But then again, coming into an F1 car, it is a different story, because it's not only driving the car. All of a sudden, you've got all these pressures from left, right, and center. If big guys like Checo Perez cannot withstand them, or Danny Rick cannot, a rookie normally should suffer more. But I think they protect them in the beginning a little, or not more than a little bit. They protect them in the beginning, and that gives them a good chance. But it's not an easy thing to make the step to a rookie, because, as you rightly say, Ian, there is no substitute for real testing in a real race car, because there you can get a real feel, because there's so much data going into a race car that you can see how good they are, because the simulator gives you a good understanding, but it's a simulator. If it goes wrong, you reset and you go again. In a race car, if you go wrong, you reset in the garage, and it costs you a lot of money, which then is you cannot spend on development, because it's within the budget cap. So it is still a risk, but I think the big teams have got a good eye. It's good people mentoring them and coaching them, especially Mercedes, I would say.
That's really interesting, actually, because you've got Haas, who obviously have tried to go back to the rookie idea of Oliver Behrman, whereas you've got Williams, who obviously gave Logan Sargent a second season. It's not worked out, and have now gone for a very experienced, very talented pairing for the next couple of years, obviously with Alex Albon and now Carlos Sainz. What do you think of Sainz going to Williams, and also the job being done by James Vowles? Because it's quite clear that obviously there's a lot of investment going on at Williams to not only have an incredible driver pairing, but also to improve the technology, back at Grove.
But I think of that one. They have now one of the best driver pairing in Formula One, because Alex and Carlos, they are very good in my opinion. They are both very good drivers. I respect both of them. I didn't expect that Carlos will go there, because you can see obviously the Williams this year is not what it was supposed to be. We need to be honest about that one as well. But obviously James has convinced Carlos and Alex to stay and Carlos to come there with what he's telling them. It's in the pipeline. I have no idea what he said. I was very surprised that Carlos picked Williams if he had the doors open for Alpine and Audi. I mean, because they are manufacturer teams. And normally a good driver goes for a manufacturer team. But obviously James has told him something to convince Carlos, and Carlos went there. And I would have done the same like James. If you want to improve a team which is in the moment struggling, the best is to have two experienced drivers, known quantities, So, and Logan had 2 years, and it doesn't seem to work out. So at some stage, you need to make changes. And I fully, actually, I admire that he got Carlos signed, being in competition with two works teams which wanted to hire him. Well done.
Did you ever try to sign Carlos?
No, I didn't try. I worked too long with his father, so I didn't want to. I worked in rallying a long time with Carlos Senior. We are good friends, Carlos Senior and me. But at the time, Carlos, he had better options than Haas.
There's one other Italian I'd like to ask you about, if you don't mind, Guenther. I remember the start of a very famous Netflix Driver's Live episode. There's you and Matteo Binotto driving around in this little Fiat 500, I think it was, stopping off, having a nice glass of wine somewhere at his vineyards, I think. And all of a sudden now he's decided to push his seemingly nice retirement to one side and come back into Formula One, taking on this role with Audi. That's a massive project for him, and for Audi to take this decision midway through its development program, pretty much 18 months into what was a 3-year starter program to get into F1. You know Mattia very well. Had he discussed anything along those lines with you? I mean, are you surprised by this decision he's taken to join Audi?
No, I'm not surprised. And we didn't discuss any detail. I spoke of 2 times with him since he signed, but very briefly because it's always something going on. I actually need to maybe call him today or tomorrow because he starts on the 1st of August and then he will not have a lot of time to talk with me because, as you say, there's a massive project going on. He needs to focus on that one instead of talking with me, So, but he will have time anyway to talk with me. But am I surprised? I think I'm positive surprised on one thing that they took action because they must have seen something which wasn't right. And I think, again, there is a lot of people from outside. There was a lot of doubt. I wouldn't say criticism, doubt. What is going on at Audi? We never hear anything. There's nothing really going on. Kick Sauber is struggling. And that will be the Sauber team, or that will be the Audi team in 26. So we're all thinking it and talking behind these people, and somebody must have realized that there's not enough going on. And I think one of the worrying things was like when Carlos Sainz doesn't sign for Audi or Volkswagen Group is the second biggest OEM in the world, as far as I know. And one of the best drivers in Formula One doesn't want to sign for them, but signs for a private team. It's like I think that was. I wouldn't say the reason for it, but all this together, I think the board of Audi just decided we need to make a change because we are not where we wanted to be. I mean, for sure they looked into it, and I have no idea why they changed and what, but they looked into it, and so we are not in the place where we should be. And for sure, they had a lot of people telling them, guys, you need to speed up here your involvement because otherwise, I think it wouldn't be good for Formula One if Audi coming in 26 is a backmarker. That would not be good for anybody.
Maybe Mattia might have a job for you there.
It's always difficult to work with friends, and I'm pretty happy where I am in the moment. I let Mattia do the work.
Well, 26 will be here sooner than we know it. Just finally, Guenther, we've got a really, really good question from a fan, from Willem.Alex88. What driver from past or present would you like or would have liked to have worked with, and why?
I think from the past and present, I would say I never met or I never knew Ayrton Senna. Everybody talks highly about him, so for sure that would have been interesting. But I worked with the guy which Nicky, he was a driver, and I worked with him, so I cannot say I would have liked to work with him, but I did never work with him being the driver. I worked with him being my boss, so I quite enjoyed that one as well. But I think everybody will tell you that working with Ayrton Senna was something special because the guy was so special. I didn't know him, so it's difficult. I'm just saying, for me, it's the same. If I could work with somebody just to get to know him, maybe I would be disappointed. I don't know because I never worked with him, but I think that would be really cool.
Absolutely. And just the absolute final thing, something we do on this podcast is bold predictions. Do you have a bold prediction for the final 10 races of the season?
My boldest prediction is that McLaren will win the constructors' title.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Is that bold enough? Because
that's
all the rest would be a little bit daydreaming.
I'll take that. Guenther, thank you so much for your time. This has been the latest episode of the RacingNews365.com podcast from Guenther, Ian, and myself. Thank you for watching. See you later.
See you later, guys. Thank you.
Take care, folks.